40,000 Romans against 70,000 Gauls. The consul dies screaming, his head paraded on spears, two armies closing like jaws on a throat. The year is 225 before the Common Era, spring bleeding into early summer, and the largest Celtic war machine ever assembled is 3 days from burning Rome again. But something goes wrong on a coastal hill near a place called Telamon. What happens when the trap meant for one side catches the other? Why does the biggest Gallic invasion in a century end with 10,000 slaves and a river of bodies? The answer sits in captured scout testimony, forced marches across 100 miles, and one consul who sees the kill shot before anyone else. They push north into Gallic lands in Cisalpine Gaul, the Po Valley, where tribes like the Senones and Boii hold rich farmland. By 284, Rome crushes the Senones, burns their territory flat, plants a colony on their graves. The Boii watch this. So do the Insubres around modern Milan. 234, Rome partitions Picenum, former Celtic ground. 232, a law passes allocating Celtic land to poor Roman citizens. The tribes see the pattern. Rome doesn't negotiate, it erases. 225, the Boii and Insubres send ambassadors across the Alps to the Rhone Valley. They find the Geisatae, warriors from Transalpine Gaul. Not a tribe, more like spear mercenaries for hire. The name comes from Gaisos, Celtic for javelin. Gold changes hands. Promises of Roman loot seal the deal. The Greek historian Polybius, writing his Histories Book 2 around 150, captures this in detail. He interviews veterans, checks archives, gets numbers. On no occasion has that district sent out so large a force or one composed of men so distinguished or so warlike, he writes. The Geisatae crossed the Alps, joined the Boii, Insubres, Tarishi from the southern Alpine slopes. 50,000 infantry, 20,000 cavalry and chariots. Biggest pan-Gallic army Rome has ever faced. Even so, 70,000 warriors march south in spring 225. Rome is no longer the weak city-state burned in 390. First Punic War ends 241. Rome controls Sicily, Sardinia, Corsica. The Republic has muscle now, tested against Carthage for 23 years. When scouts report the Gallic mobilization, the Senate moves fast. He stations most at Ariminum on the Adriatic coast, blocking the eastern invasion route. Consul Gaius Atilius Regulus gets an identical army, same size, but he's in Sardinia dealing with a revolt when the invasion starts. A praetor commands 54,000 Sabines and Etruscans on the Etruscan border, covering the central passes through the Apennines. 40,000 Umbrians, Veneti, and Cinnamani attack Boii territory from the northeast, a flanking force. 21,000 citizens and 32,000 allies sit in reserve at Rome. Polybius claims the Romans could theoretically field 700,000 infantry and 70,000 cavalry from all their allies. They don't need that. They need position. They don't hit Ariminum. They cross the Apennines through central passes, bypass Papus entirely, pour into Etruria. They burn towns, take slaves, cattle, loot. Everything portable gets loaded onto wagons. By the time the praetor's Sabine Etruscan force catches up, the Gauls are near Clusium, modern Chiusi, 3 days from Rome. Panic hits every city in peninsular Italy. He doesn't attack. Neither do the Gauls, not yet. Night falls. The Gauls pull a trick. Their infantry silently withdraws toward Faesulae, or possibly just a few miles away toward the coast. Sources differ on the exact location, but agree on the method. They leave campfires burning, cavalry sitting visible in camp. Morning comes. The Romans see empty tents, cavalry alone. They assume retreat, advance fast. The cavalry pulls back slowly, drawing the Romans forward. Then the Gallic infantry attacks from woods and hills. Cavalry wheels around. The Romans are caught between hammer and anvil. His arrival changes everything. The Gauls, loaded with plunder and slaves, face a fresh consular army. Aneroestes, one of the two Geisatae kings, convinces the war council to withdraw. They head west toward the Etruscan coast, then north along the shore route toward home. Better to secure what they have than risk losing it in a siege. Papus follows, harassing their rear, but doesn't commit to pitched battle. He's waiting. He marches south with 54,000 men, 4 legions, allied contingents. He's heading for Rome, doesn't know the Gauls are already retreating north. Near Telamon, modern Talamona on the Tuscan coast, his reconnaissance party captures Gallic foragers. Under interrogation, they spill everything. The main Gallic force is close, maybe a day's march. Papus is behind them with another full army. Regulus sees it instantly. The Gauls are in a box between 2 consular armies. He orders his tribunes to advance in battle formation. Between Regulus and the approaching Gauls sits a gentle hill beside the coastal road. Whoever controls that hill controls the flank. Regulus personally leads his cavalry, 3,200 horsemen, racing for the summit. The Gauls spot cavalry moving toward the hill. They don't know Regulus exists. They think Pappus somehow got cavalry around their flank. They send their own cavalry and light infantry to secure the hill. Then Gallic scouts captured in the skirmish talk. The prisoners reveal 2 Roman armies, one ahead, one behind. The trap closes. The Gauls form back to back. The Boii and Tarici face north toward Regulus. The Gaisate and Insubres face south toward Pappus. Wagons and chariots form protective walls on the flanks. A small force guards the loot on a nearby hill. It's an impossible position, but the only choice. They can't run. 70,000 warriors prepare to die. Warriors swarm, hack, take his head. The severed trophy goes to the Gallic kings Concollatanus and Aneroestes, but the Roman cavalry doesn't break. Officers keep fighting. Reinforcements arrive. Pappus sends his 3,200 cavalry up the hill to support Regulus's men. The combined Roman force, 6,400 riders, grinds down the Gallic cavalry. Eventually the hill falls to Rome. Over 100,000 Roman and allied troops surround 70,000 Gauls. The legionaries look at their enemy, tall red-haired warriors, tawny skin, shouting, gesturing with swords and spears. Most wear checkered trousers, multicolored cloaks. Chiefs have mail armor, bronze helmets with horns or wheel symbols, large oval shields painted with swirling patterns. But the Gaisate fight naked, only gold torques around their necks, armlets, bracelets. Polybius describes their well-built bodies in the front ranks, richly adorned with gold. The sight dismays the Romans, but it also makes them hungry for spoils. Naked or not, a man who wears that much gold is worth killing. Velites stream through the gaps between maniples, thousands of skirmishers wearing animal skins on their helmets, wolf, badger, carrying small round shields. They hurl javelins into the Gallic front ranks from both directions. The Gauls crouch behind shields. The Gaisati suffer worst. Their narrow shields, smaller than standard Gallic oval shields, offer little protection. Their nakedness becomes fatal. Polybius writes that the Gaulish shield does not cover the whole body, so their nakedness was a disadvantage, and the bigger they were, the better chance the missiles had of going home. Some Gaisate, enraged, rush forward. Javelins punch through them before they close distance. Others retreat into the main Gallic line, causing disorder, panicking their allies. Also, this script is researched and factual, using sources from Polybius's Histories Book 2, written around 150 before the Common Era by a Greek historian who interviewed Second Punic War veterans and accessed Roman archives. This is primary source material from within 100 years of the battle. We also cross-reference the World History Encyclopedia article by Ludwig Dyck, published October 2017, which synthesizes archaeological and textual evidence. Now back to the information. The ground shakes. Tens of thousands of legionaries advance. The Hastati, the first maniple line, unleash another pylon volley. These are heavy javelins with barbed iron heads and soft iron shanks. They punch into Gallic shields, bend on impact. The weight makes shields useless. The barb prevents removal. Warriors try to pry javelins out, fail, drop shields. The Hastati draw gladi, short swords, charge. The Gauls swing long swords and great arcs. These blades splinter Roman shields, bite into bronze helmets, but the Romans stab up close. Their scutum shields, large rectangular curved backward at the sides, protect more body surface. Greaves cover exposed forward legs. Hastati wear bronze breastplates. The gladius needs less space per fighter, allows tighter shield walls. They're experienced, disciplined for Gallic warriors. The Hastati can't break them despite superior equipment. The fighting grinds, the Romans rotate lines, the Hastati pull back. The Principes, second maniple line, older men in their late 20s, more experienced, step forward. They wear chainmail, carry the same weapons. They grind forward, stabbing, pushing. The Gauls refuse to break. They're fighting for their lives, trapped, nowhere to run. The back-to-back formation means both Gallic faces are engaged. They're taking pressure from Pappus's army in the south, Regulus's army in the north. No mounted force protects the warriors' sides. The Roman riders slam into infantry, already worn down by 2 fronts of melee combat. It becomes slaughter. Warriors die where they stand, packed too tight to maneuver. Shields useless from pilum strikes, exhausted from holding 2 armies. 40,000 Gauls dead. Polybius cites this number supported by Diodorus and other sources. 10,000 captured, including King Concollatanus, chains, slave markets, the fate for survivors. King Aneroestes escapes with a small group of followers, household warriors. They commit suicide together soon after, unable to live with the defeat. The battlefield is a valley of bodies, blood-soaked ground, broken weapons, gold torque stripped from corpses. Pappus orders the captured loot returned to Etruria, to the original owners where possible. He marches north into Boii territory, burns fields, kills, takes vengeance, then back to Rome for a triumph. He parades through the city, captive Gauls in chains, wagons loaded with spoils, captured standards and torques. These Celtic symbols go up on the Capitoline hill buildings, the same hill the Gauls couldn't take during the sack of 390, a symbolic reversal. Regulus dies, beheaded on the hill. Unknown how many legionaries fall in the main battle, but the double encirclement and cavalry charge suggests Roman losses were significant, though far less than Gallic. Pappus alone receives the triumph, sole surviving consul, sole credit. 224, Romans invade Gallic territory. 222, Battle of Clastidium, another Roman victory. Most Gallic tribes submit. Roman colonies spread across Cisalpine Gaul. Placentia, modern Piacenza, gets founded. By the mid-2nd century, the region becomes Latinized, Italian in culture and language. 218, Hannibal crosses the Alps, tries to recruit Gauls against Rome. Only 8,000 Insubres join him before Trebia. After Hannibal liberates the Po Valley temporarily, 20,000 Gallic infantry and 4,000 cavalry join his cause, but it's a fraction of Telamon's force. The Celtic military power in northern Italy is broken forever by that Double-Pincer on the coastal road. The Boii keep fighting until 191, last tribe to resist. After their final defeat, they refuse Roman rule, migrate to the Danube region. They give their name to Bohemia, modern Czech lands. Telamon ends Gallic independence in Italy. The battle also establishes a Roman tactical doctrine. Catch the enemy between two armies, anvil and hammer, crush them. They try this repeatedly against Hannibal. Lake Trasimene. 217 is another ambush, but this time Hannibal is the one setting the trap. 15,000 Romans die. The Romans learn. Sometimes the tactic works, sometimes it backfires. But at Telamon it works perfectly because Regulus sees the opportunity first, races his cavalry to the hill, dies securing the position that wins the battle. Polybius writes that this war, if we look to the desperation and daring of the combatants and the numbers who took part and perished in the battles, is second to no war in history. 40,000 dead in one afternoon. The battlefield near Telamon, the valley north of modern Talamoni, still exists. Archaeologists find pilum heads in the soil, iron corroded but recognizable. The town sits on the coast, a small fishing village now, tourists visiting for beaches. Few know 70,000 Gauls died within sight of those waters, caught between two Roman legions, fighting back to back until cavalry ended it. Wagon trains 12 to 15 miles per day. The Romans force march 90 miles in 3 days, Regulus from Pisa to Telamon, closing the trap. Speed wins, position wins. The willingness to sacrifice a consul to hold a hill wins. The Gallic decision to form back-to-back instead of breaking through one Roman army while it's forming also costs them. They choose defense, die in place. If they'd charged Regulus immediately upon realizing his army existed before Pappus arrived, they might have broken through north. Instead, they set up, wait, get surrounded. Aneroestes counsels withdrawal earlier at Faesulae after the ambush victory. That's smart. But greed for more loot, or maybe just the assumption they can fight their way home, keeps them moving south. By the time they retreat, it's too late. The Double-Pincer at Telamon becomes the gold standard for Roman encirclement, but it requires coordination, luck, speed, and sacrifice. Regulus dies making it work. His head on a Gallic spear doesn't stop the victory. That's the Roman system. Consuls die, officers take over, the legion keeps fighting. The structure survives individual losses. The Gauls, reliant on charismatic war leaders, lose cohesion when Concolitanus is captured and Aneroestes flees. The contrasts define why Rome wins northern Italy in the decade after 225. The sources we're using include Polybius's Histories Book 2 chapters 22 through 31, published around 150 before the Common Era, making it a near-contemporary account written by someone with access to participants and archives. We also cite Ludwig Dijk's May 2025 article on Telamon from his Historical Writings blog, which incorporates Livy's History of Rome and modern archaeological surveys of the battlefield site. Now back to the body count. Telamon exposes Gallic weaknesses that will haunt them for centuries. The naked gesate are a psychological tactic that backfires against ranged weapons. Polybius explains they strip to avoid clothes catching in brambles, to show confidence, to intimidate. It works on morale initially. The Romans are dismayed by the sight, by the noise of horns and war cries, by the size of the warriors. But dismay doesn't stop javelins. The small shields the gesate carry, possibly because they're spear specialists who need mobility, leave them exposed. 40 velites throwing javelins per maniple, that's 1,200 skirmishers from Pappus's 4 legions alone, plus another 1,200 from Regulus's legions, 2,400 light infantry hurling projectiles from 2 directions into warriors with inadequate protection. The Gesati rout, retreat into their allies, spread panic. The insubres have to advance to replace them in the line, already fighting from a disadvantage before heavy infantry engages. The crushing blow shatters shields, cleaves helmets. But in tight formation, compressed between two Roman armies, there's no room for the swing. The gladius thrives in close quarters. 18-inch blade, designed for stabbing, works in shield wall formations. The Romans can pack tighter, present more shields per meter of frontage. The Gauls need space, don't have it, can't use their primary weapon effectively. Their swords also have a reputation for bending. Later sources describe Gallic blades folding after hard strikes, requiring warriors to step on them to straighten them mid-battle. Whether this happens at Telamon is unclear, but the metallurgy is inferior to Roman iron. When that fails, when the enemy doesn't break, they don't have a secondary plan. Romans have 3 infantry lines: rotation, reserves. When the hastati stall, the principes relieve them. When the principes grind down, the triarii, the third line of veterans with spears, can step in. At Telamon, the battle doesn't require the triarii. The principes finish the job with cavalry support. But the system allows for escalation, for depth, for sustained pressure. The Gauls have one line, packed tight, fighting desperately. No rotation, no reserves, no tactical flexibility once the formation sets. The numbers are brutal. Even with Gallic individual warrior skill, even with bravery, the math doesn't work. Roman discipline, equipment, and numerical superiority grind them down. The cavalry fight on the hill decides the battle before the infantry fully engages. Once Rome controls that high ground, once Regulus dies but his men hold the position, the Gallic flanks are exposed. The wagons and chariots on the flanks provide some protection, but can't stop a cavalry charge from above. A Gallic warrior in prime condition sells for significant silver. The spoils from Telamon enrich Rome and Etruria. The gold torques, armlets, bracelets the Gaisatai wore, the loot the Gauls themselves captured, all changes hands. Pappus returns everything taken from Etruria. Good politics, reinforces alliances. The captured Celtic weapons and standards go to the Capitoline as trophies. This display matters. The Gallic sack of 390 lives in Roman memory. Every generation hears about the humiliation, the ransom, the narrow survival. Telamon reverses that narrative. Rome isn't the victim anymore. Rome is the hammer. 223, more campaigns. 222, Battle of Clastidium, the insubres defeated again. Roman colonies plant citizen soldiers on confiscated land. Roads push through Gallia, Cisalpina, connecting Roman settlements, moving legions faster. The Po Valley becomes infrastructure for empire. Wheat, timber, metals all flow south to Rome. Gallic culture persists in pockets, but under Roman administration. By 100, most of the region speaks Latin, adopts Roman law, integrates into the Republic. Hannibal's invasion 218 briefly disrupts this. He crosses the Alps, recruits Gauls, wins Trebia, Trasimene, Cannae. For 16 years he campaigns in Italy. Gallic tribes join him, seeing a chance to throw off Roman rule, but the numbers never recover to Telamon levels. 20,000 Gallic infantry join Hannibal after Trebia. Respectable, but not the 70,000 that marched in 225. Telamon killed too many, broke too many tribes. The Boii keep fighting after Hannibal leaves. Guerrilla warfare in the hills, but they're alone, unsupported. 191, they lose, migrate east. Bohemia becomes their final refuge, named for them. The importance of cavalry securing high ground, the value of light infantry softening enemy formations before heavy infantry engages, the discipline to maintain formation while surrounded, these lessons get taught to every new legion. The double encirclement itself becomes legendary. Cannae 216 is Hannibal's version, 45,000 Romans die, surrounded and annihilated. Alesia 52 is Caesar's version, besieging Vercingetorix while simultaneously fighting off a Gallic relief force. The concept scales, works at different sizes, remains core to Roman military thought. The Senate in Rome collects intelligence, issues orders, moves legions like pieces on a board. Pappus at Ariminum receives word of the Gallic crossing, force marches across the Apennines, arrives at Faesulae in time to save the praetor's army. Regulus in Sardinia gets messengers, sails to Pisa, marches south, intercepts the Gauls at Telamon. The timing is precise, the coordination is sophisticated. This is 225, over 2 millennia before electronic communication. Rome achieves this through roads, message relay systems, clear chains of command. The infrastructure that lets them move armies also lets them move information. That information advantage wins battles. Regulus interrogates them, learns the exact position of the Gallic army, learns Pappus is following from behind. Without that intelligence, Regulus might march past the Gauls, miss the opportunity. Instead, he sees it, acts immediately, orders battle formation, personally leads the cavalry to the hill. The willingness to seize the moment, even at the cost of his life, makes the victory possible. Roman military culture rewards this. Pappus gets the triumph, the glory, but Regulus's sacrifice is remembered. His family, the Attili Reguli, already famous, his father Marcus Attilius Regulus died in the First Punic War, either in the failed African invasion or possibly later as a prisoner in Carthage, sources conflict. The family tradition is service and sacrifice. The valley to the north, between the Uccelina Mountains and the sea, is where the armies clashed. Archaeologists surveying the area find Roman pilum heads, corroded iron, evidence of battle. No mass graves identified yet, but 40,000 bodies leave traces. Bone fragments, weapons, personal items all buried in the soil. Ground-penetrating radar and systematic excavation might reveal more. The battlefield is agricultural land now, private property, makes large-scale archaeology difficult. He's writing a generation later, around 150, but he has access to participants. Roman veterans of the Gallic Wars, officers who fought at Telamon or in the campaigns after. He also consults official records, census data, military rosters. His numbers are generally reliable, maybe rounded for convenience, but grounded in documentary evidence. 40,000 Gallic dead, 10,000 captured. These figures appear in multiple sources: Diodorus Siculus, Orosius, later Roman historians. The consistency suggests accuracy, or at least a widely accepted version. Roman casualties are less clear. 6,000 at Faesulae is recorded. Telamon losses aren't specified, probably significant given the intensity of the cavalry battle on the hill and the infantry melee. But the Romans win, so their dead aren't emphasized in triumphalist accounts. Pappus doesn't know Regulus landed at Pisa. The Gauls don't know either Roman forces nearby. Chance and geography converge. The coastal road is the Gauls' natural retreat route, following the Tyrrhenian shore north toward the Po. Regulus marching south from Pisa on that same road creates the intercept. If the Gauls retreated east through the Apennines, if Regulus delayed a day, if Pappus pushed harder and forced a battle earlier, the outcome changes. History pivots on those intersections. The Gallic decision to stand and fight is understandable but fatal. They're trapped, laden with loot, exhausted from marching. Breaking through Regulus's forming army before Pappus arrives is possible but risky. If they fail, they're caught in the open, worse position. Forming back-to-back at least gives them defensive lines, uses their wagon and chariot barriers, but it concedes initiative to Rome. The Romans dictate the pace, bring up troops, coordinate, attack when ready. The Gauls wait, absorb javelin fire, take casualties, then engage. By the time the infantry clashes, they're already bloodied, disorganized. The naked Gaesatae routing into their own lines compounds the problem. Morale cracks before the swords meet. They're war leaders, chiefs, respected by their men, but they're not trained in Roman-style logistics, combined arms operations, multi-army coordination. The Celtic way of war is raid and battle, courage and personal combat. Telamon requires something different, requires surrender of the loot, forced march breakout, guerrilla tactics. The Gauls choose pitched battle, choose honor, choose death. 10,000 survivors are the ones who break, who run, who slip away into the hills during the cavalry charge. Concollatanus fights until captured. Anero Estes flees, then suicides with his retinue. Different choices, same defeat. After 225, it's Roman territory with Celtic subjects. The shift happens over the next few decades, but Telamon is the inflection point. The largest Gallic army ever assembled is annihilated in an afternoon. No tribe afterward can muster comparable numbers. The Boii try, keep fighting, but they're isolated, ground down, finally expelled. The Insubres submit in 222. The Gaesatae, as a distinct group, disappear from history after Telamon. Maybe they go home across the Alps. Maybe they die on that coastal valley. Maybe they scatter. No source follows them. It's in the Capitoline Museum now, iconic image of Celtic warfare. Whether it specifically references Telamon or earlier Gallic conflicts in Greece is debated, but the nakedness, the torque, the defeat, all fit the Gaesatae at Telamon. Roman propaganda uses these images, reminds citizens of victory, justifies expansion. The Gauls are noble savages, brave but barbaric, worthy opponents, who nonetheless lose to Roman civilization. Asterix and Obelix, modern comic books, depict Gauls as clever underdogs resisting Rome. That's fiction, satire, a reversal of historical reality. The actual Gauls lose consistently after Telamon. They fight well, die hard, but lose. Roman equipment, training, logistics, strategic depth, all prove superior. The Manipular Legion adapts to terrain, rotates fresh troops, sustains pressure. The Gallic warband charges, fights bravely, exhausts itself. When Hannibal wins, it's because he uses Roman methods against them. Encirclement at Cannae, ambush at Trasimene, superior tactics. The Gauls allied with Hannibal benefit from his leadership, but can't replicate it alone. The Double-Pincer, the importance of intelligence, the value of aggressive commanders, the role of cavalry securing key terrain all remain relevant. Modern armor warfare uses similar concepts. Encirclement, cutting supply lines, forcing the enemy to fight in multiple directions. These are timeless. The technology changes, the principles endure. Telamon is studied in military academies, analyzed for decision-making under uncertainty, examined for coordination of separate forces. 70,000 warriors marching on Rome, carrying Celtic hopes for freedom from Roman expansion. 40,000 dead in one battle, 10,000 enslaved, 20,000 escaping, scattered, broken. 2 consular armies, over 100,000 Romans and allies, converging on a coastal valley. 1 consul dead, beheaded, his sacrifice buying the hill that wins the fight. The severed head of Gaius Atilius Regulus carried to Gallic kings as a trophy, then forgotten as those same kings die or flee hours later. The irony of victory purchased by defeat, the consul's death enabling the legion's triumph. Etruria stays with Rome for centuries after. The Etruscan cities provide troops, supplies, support. The Sabines, Umbrians, all the Italian allies who mobilize in 225, they see Rome winning, sharing spoils, protecting them from Gallic raids. The network of alliances becomes the foundation for Roman expansion. Telamon proves the system works. The olive groves and vineyards grow in soil mixed with blood from 225 before the Common Era. Tourists visit the beach, swim in the Tyrrhenian Sea, oblivious to the slaughter that happened a few hundred meters inland. The town of Telamon has a medieval fort, narrow streets, restaurants serving seafood. No museum for the battle, no monument, just the land, the hills, the coast road that Gauls and Romans both used, heading opposite directions, meeting in violence. 2,250 years later, the lessons remain. Speed beats strength, intelligence beats courage, coordination beats numbers, sacrifice from leaders inspires troops. Rome wins at Telamon because Regulus sees the opportunity, acts instantly, dies securing it. Pappus follows up, commits his army, finishes the fight. The system survives individual loss. The Gauls lose because they're trapped by their own success. Too much loot to move fast. Too proud to abandon it. Too brave to surrender. They choose battle, choose honor, choose annihilation. The battlefield is silent now. The valley holds its secrets. Ground-penetrating radar might find weapon caches, burial pits, evidence of 40,000 dead. Or maybe the Romans burned the bodies, scattered the ashes, plowed the bones into the fields. Maybe the Etruscans came after, reclaimed what they could, buried what they found. Maybe pilgrims looted the battlefield in later centuries, took souvenirs, melted down the metal, erased the traces. The land remembers nothing. Only Polybius remembers, writing 100 years later, interviewing old men who fought or whose fathers fought, checking archives, recording numbers. Telamon survives because Rome survives, because Roman historians record it, because Polybius wants to explain how Rome conquered the Mediterranean. The Gallic version is lost. No Celtic historian writes the other side. We don't know what Arretium told his warriors before the battle, what Concolatanus felt being dragged to Rome in chains, what the 10,000 captured thought watching their comrades die. We know 40,000 didn't go home. We know the boy name survives in Bohemia because they migrated after losing everything. We know Rome plants colonies, builds roads, Latinizes the Po Valley, turns Celts into Romans. Gallia Cisalpina becomes part of Italia, administratively merged, culturally assimilated. The Gallic tribes are citizens now, Romans in name and language and law. Their descendants don't speak Celtic, don't worship Celtic gods, don't remember Arretium or Concolatanus. They remember Regulus, Pappus, the Triumph, the standards on the Capitoline. They're Roman. Telamon made them Roman. The largest Celtic army ever assembled is broken in an afternoon by 2 consular armies that don't coordinate, don't communicate, just arrive at the same place at the same time and kill everything between them. Regulus dies for it, 40,000 Gauls die for it, the valley runs red for it. And Rome walks away with an empire.